Hello and welcome to 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your producer, Jeremiah Long, and joining me on Monday, as always, to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs versus the South Carolina Gamecocks is the man himself, my dude, Logan Landers. How's it going, Logan?
Hey, what's going on, Jeremiah? It's a beautiful Monday once again. We're in the crisp season of fall finally. Football's in full gear. Hopefully this game's going to get to be played. We've seen week after week that some of the games that we previewed have not gone the way we've hoped. They just haven't been played yet. So fingers are crossed on this one, buddy, that they can get played.
Absolutely. Well, this is a huge game. We want it to play. We want to see what happens. One quick question I was going to ask you. What happens to games like SEC games that aren't played when it comes to the standings between the teams?
They get stalled out. Either they get rescheduled for later on in the season, or in some cases they just drop them. If you're a team like Georgia who's out of the college football playoff hunt, it won't affect them too much. But if you're a team like an Alabama or somebody per se who's in that race, that one game might hurt you in the end. So while, we don't know if any of these games are going to be played over the next few weeks, it's always a hit and miss kind of deal, as we've seen. It does affect them because, we saw this past week, Clemson was going to play. They were about to have a game, and then that got canceled. Right. And, Trevor Lawrence, he was, he had that injury. He was going to come back and get his feet wet once again. But that wasn't able to happen. So, it affects more than just, the standing as well. It affects the players who are coming off injury. Like I said, it affects the coaches who've planned their whole week around this game, and now they got to, shelve it for either later on in the season or it might just not be played at all. So, in terms of the standings, though, they could replay it or they could just chalk it up and be like, it doesn't affect either team. We can just throw this game out. So, there's two really scenarios it can go with for that side.
That's incredible. So, and that's interesting because this is the only season we've ever had that's had these particular types of ups and downs. So with Alabama, you do feel like it's a bad thing if they miss games. So that it's not a rest. It's not a rest week. It's an untested week.
Yeah, just because if you're one of those four teams that are going to be trying to get that national championship, I want to play all the games I can to prove my worth. I don't want to miss games due to I don't want to have games be missed. I want to play as many games as I can and beat these opponents by as much as possible just to prove that, hey, I'm worthy of being in these select teams. Give me anybody and I'll go up there every Saturday and try and get this win. But, with all the stuff going on, that's easier said than done. So we'll have to see if so I'm sure there's going to be more games that are canceled. Hopefully not this Georgia-South Carolina game. But we'll see if any more of the big games are going to be canceled and how that's going to affect the college football playoff, if that'll potentially even push it back some. We'll have to see.
Oh, wow. That's a really good point. Yeah, the dates may still shift. Yep. Well, we've got two teams here that are not in the hunt for the college, playoffs.
Right.
But these are two great SEC teams, two teams that I have a lot of history with as a Vols fan, and two teams that we know really well broadcasting here from Georgia. So, Logan, will you please break down the Georgia Bulldogs versus the South Carolina Gamecocks?
Let's do it. So let's talk about the Bulldogs first. That's where we're from. We're from Georgia. Let's talk about the team. Let's talk about our home team first. So with the Georgia Bulldogs, they went up against another Bulldog with Mississippi State this past week. They got the win in that one, 31-24. So far, look, we saw JT Daniels. He's alive. He's on the team. He played. He actually did pretty great for his first game. I'll give him that. Georgia's needed some help in their quarterback department since the beginning of the season. We saw Jamie Newman he chose not to play this season, and we had Stetson Bennett come in for a little bit, and he did pretty solid for being like a third string quarterback. He did about as well as you could expect him to play, but there was still something missing from the Bulldogs team. And I think that kind of you kind of saw what it was when JT Daniels was able to step in this past week against Mississippi State. So he was 28 of 38 on throwing with 401 yards also and 4 touchdowns, no interception. So being his first game, and I believe almost a year or two, because he was at USC and he transferred over because he had that knee injury. He didn't miss a beat. Because I remember when we were talking about him, we did a player profile of him a while ago. He was a 5-star recruit, I believe, and at USC, which is one of the most widely known schools in, California and across football. This guy was no joke. And I mean, if it wasn't for that injury, he wouldn't even be at Georgia, I don't think. He transferred here because he knew his starting job was going to be up for grabs. So he's like, all right, I'll go down south. I'll go to Georgia. I'll prove my worth. And we've seen, it's taken a few weeks for him to get his knee fully healthy, I believe, to finally get all those reps in practice. Be like, okay, I feel comfortable going out there on the big stage on Saturday and doing my thing once again. And I mean, like I said, the numbers don't lie. 400+ yards and 4 touchdowns with no interceptions. You can't get much better than that for your first game back in what seems like forever. So he couldn't do it by himself, though. He had some help. So the rushing game for both these teams were really kind of non-existent, honestly. Zamir White only ran for 21 yards. And I mean, and over on Mississippi State, Dylan Johnson only had 19. So I mean, both these teams were really just airing the ball out this entire game. I mean, it was a heck of a game too. It was a close game between the Georgia, who's the 13th ranked team at the moment, and who are 5-2 against Mississippi State, who's 2-5. But they show that they have a lot of tenacity and they have a lot of grit, and that their 2-5 record does not reflect who they are as a team. It shows that they're going to go out there, they're going to fight against these bigger teams, and they're going to try and get this win. They almost pulled it off, and they only lost by a touchdown. So they proved that, to me, that they have a lot of heart. They have that bulldog mentality. I'll throw that one out there, of course. So they were able to, they weren't able to get the win, but they did have a lot of high shine. But back to Georgia here. So the main guy that was helping out JT Daniels on offense was Jermaine Burton. 8 catches, 197 yards, 2 touchdowns as well. George Pickens got a touchdown with 87 yards, and also Karis Jackson got that 4th touchdown with 55 yards. So that receiving core was really we've been talking about them and be like, man, they've kind of been quiet with Stetson Bennett. Well, we see now that they have JT Daniels, who's like I said, a highly recruited quarterback with a lot of hype around him. We saw that these wide receivers are no joke. We see that they have all the talent there. It's just they need a little bit of a push from Daniels to get the ball to them a little bit more to really kind of see how talented they are. And so they really helped this game. They did great for the Bulldog offense. Talking about the defense real quick for Georgia, Nakobe Dean, who we've talked about a lot on this Georgia team, who's going to be a top pick. A lot of people are suspecting, and if he had 12 tackles this game, so he was doing his thing as well. And they also had 2 sacks on the day, so they were able to get to the quarterback. So overall, just for this Georgia team, kind of summing it up, they had a very solid game. While, yes, I know they would have loved to score a little bit more, and they would have loved to have this game not be as close. That's just kind of a Georgia tradition. You got to play close games. You can't just have blowouts. You guys know this. Being from Georgia, you got to have close games that are going to make you sweat a little bit towards the end. That's just how we roll down here. But overall, the Georgia Bulldogs had a very good game. Happy to see JT Daniels in the field finally in a Bulldog uniform. And if you're a Bulldog fan, I'd be very happy to see just how the rest of the season plays out with him under helm at quarterback, and especially next year, because I think that's going to be the kicker for me, is that if he's fully healthy next year, how good can this Bulldog team be?
Right.
But let's go over to South Carolina. Let's go over to the Gamecocks.
Yeah,
so,
what's up?
As we all know, they fired their head coach, Will Muschamp, the other week, and that's a big blow. We just saw that he wasn't able to get it done in South Carolina, and I mean, that's what happens. Sometimes the legendary, the well-known head coach just loses some of his steam, and I mean that we saw that's what happened here. And so they fired him this past week, and they had to get their interim coach in there. And I mean they weren't able to get the win against the Missouri Tigers. Unfortunately, they lost 17-10. So the Gamecocks are now 2-6 on the season, while Missouri moves to 3-3. But I mean they tried some things. I mean, it's always hard coming off of the firing of your head coach to be kind of fully committed because it's just a lot of uncertainty for these players. Because, I mean, let's be honest, I'm sure that Will Muschamp, just the aura around him and all the wins he's had and all the great coaches, all the great games he's been a part of, that was a lot of the recruits that are on this team. That's a lot of their he was recruited by them. He's the one that he met with their families. He met with them personally. So, I mean, when you see your head coach go down that you're committed to, it kind of hurts the team a little bit. I mean, they didn't just lay down or anything. They fought. They just weren't able to get over that hump against Missouri. But looking at some of the stats here, they had Luke Doty, who was 14-23, 130 yards. They also had Colin Hill, who was 6-10 with 39 yards. Neither of those guys could throw a touchdown. Doty did throw one interception as well. I mean, we've seen that South Carolina offense does need a little bit of work. They do need a little bit of retooling at the quarterback position. They just haven't been able to kind of lock anything in yet. They're still trying to figure everything out. But looking back at the Gamecocks here, Doty was able to run for 59 yards as well. Kevin Harris on the ground, 16 carries for 58 yards. So in total, they had 114 on the ground that day. But, I mean, like I said, the offense just wasn't there. It wasn't clicking for South Carolina.
Yeah.
For the receiving end, Nick Muse, he was the leader with 6 catches for 67 yards. He was kind of the leader for the day. But they had 169 yards receiving, but still no touchdowns, though. So that kind of makes you worry if you're a South Carolina fan. Be like, all right, all these guys are getting catches. They had 20 total in the game as a core, but we just can't get a touchdown for whatever reason. So their defense did help them a little bit. I mean, they had Damani Stanley, who had 12 tackles. So he was their kind of anchor on defense. Jalen Foster as well had 8 tackles. So those guys were really kind of the key to helping them kind of stay in this game. They had 1 sack as well on the day. And but, I mean, if you're South Carolina, where do you really go from here? I mean, they had a good interception. They had Cam Smith get that interception, of course. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, what do you do if you're South Carolina? I mean, your kicking game was the one that kind of led you to get all these points this week. You got to hope that if you're, especially since you're an SEC team and you're expected. I mean, we've seen that South Carolina is a very good program. They're very solid. But they're just kind of in a rebuilding period, which we see a few teams go through. I mean, look, Alabama was in a rebuilding period back in the early 2000s. That's right. I mean, look at them now. They've been, since, what was it, like 2008, 2009 or whatever, they've been one of the most consistent teams in college football. I mean, they are always fighting for that SEC championship, for the national championship. They've been there. Every year. So, I mean, sometimes it just takes one good group of recruiting to really kind of turn your ship around. And I think that South Carolina can possibly get that. But it's going to be a little bit interesting, though, with their new head coach. So that's the key for me. But going into this game against the Bulldogs this Saturday on the 28th, like I said, if it does play, hopefully, I'll go with the Bulldogs to get the win with this one, just because of just how JT Daniels played this past week. Also, thanks to Luke Tarp on our YouTube page saying "Go Dogs." Yes, I agree with you, man. But yeah, so I do see Georgia getting the win in this one. If I'm Georgia, I need a good blowout win. If I'm them, they need to really kind of be like, all right, look, we had that close game last week, but this week we got our quarterback set in. All the receivers are ready for him now, you know. And Zamir White, I need him to get a little bit more carries, a little bit more touches, get some more yards. Because let's face it, while he has kind of underperformed a little bit this season, you know, me and Vince Turner, we always talk about, man, this guy is a great talent. It's just he doesn't get the ball as much, or he just can't find holes, or something's just a little bit off. But I do think that Georgia offense is going to get the win against the South Carolina defense. If I had to pick, I'm not going to pick a score. I'm going to pick a margin of victory. I'll go with the Georgia Bulldogs by 21 in this one. I see them getting a good win.
Yeah, they'll win by 21 points.
Yeah, they'll get the win by 21.
All right. Our dude Luke on YouTube thinks it's going to be 28-14 Dogs, definitely.
Yeah, that's not a bad pick. That's not a bad pick.
My big takeaway there is South Carolina has to put in 4 quarters. It's the same problem that a lot of teams let. They can't kick their way to the win.
Right.
Their defense is not going to be able to hold Georgia in that way. So when it comes down to it, I won't give a final score either, but I will say this. It's an SEC game. The main thing that I want to see happen in this game is that it gets played.
Yeah. I'm with you, man.
So please, all of you great Georgia players, all you great South Carolina players, the coaching staff, your support staff, your friends and family, just look out for each other over this, over these days, over this season, and keep everybody healthy so that we can play these games. Because win, lose, or draw, you guys want to show out as best you can this season so that next season that everybody can roar back with a tremendous vengeance, that the SEC can not only play other SEC teams, but we actually can play against the whole conference. And honestly, I think Georgia will have an amazing season once we're back to a normal world. South Carolina is going to be on a rebuilding year, hardcore next year, but that is a huge, huge opportunity. Just look at what South Carolina was able to do, in the last couple coaching rounds that they had. They brought in great famous coaches. They were able to do something for the most part when they first got there. They just couldn't get a longevity with those coaches.
Right.
So, thankfully, I think that, I'm kind of glad that they're sweeping the floor, they're getting things ready, and they're like, okay, not very many teams fired their coaches this year, even if they might have needed to fire their coach. And that is because of this unique season that we've got going on. It might not be worth it. It's definitely not worth the buyout to a lot of the teams to just put somebody on the street and still be paying them millions potentially.
Right.
But with this particular one, you gotta take that step. You gotta keep it going. You gotta keep moving. So shout out to the South Carolina Gamecocks and everybody in South Carolina for everything that you're going through, and know that these rebuilding years are going to be the best next 4 years of Gamecock rebuilding history, and they're going to come out at the other end of it being a very competitive team. Hopefully not too competitive, because we got to get them balls up there. And then Georgia, of course, they need to finish this game super strong so that they can say convincingly, ups and downs of this season. Yes, we did not take it to the house with Alabama, not even the way that people quite hoped, but we were able to, still go toe-to-toe with so many teams. We cleared out, all this, the games we're supposed to win, we won. And then from there, they don't have to worry about the rest of the season. They can just take it onto the house, stay healthy, and get ready for an incredible 2021 season.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, great. So, Logan, what is the best way that people can watch our programming or listen to it?
Well, guys, of course, we are world famous, I would say, on Facebook. You guys can check us out there. We are live every Monday, also Wednesdays as well sometimes. You guys can check us out live every day on Facebook there, man. We are doing great work. We got player profiles, team previews, legends interviews, community segments as well. We do a lot of stuff over here. So you guys want to check us out on Facebook, be sure to like, comment, share on the page. Also, we're on YouTube as well, where our guy Luke Tart has been commenting the whole time. Thank you, Luke, for commenting and chiming in. We're also like I said, we're live on YouTube as well, so you can check us out our YouTube channel. We're getting close to 100 subscribers, so if you guys want to get us by the end of the year, get us over that hump, that would be much appreciated. So be sure to check us out over there. And also, if you guys want to listen to the audio versions of all of our shows, be sure to check us out on the Believe Podcast Network, where we are on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, anywhere you like to listen to your audio experience. We are there, and we are uploading these videos as quick as possible to get you guys the audio experience you are wanting.
That's right. And make sure that you jump onto that podcast, because we are posting new podcast episodes practically every day. I've actually put the link to our Believe Podcast Network into the chat. So if you'd like to check that out, please just go over there and click on that. And again, just like Logan said, we're in the hunt for 100 subscribers for the YouTube.
Yeah.
We were killing it over on Facebook, and we've been killing it for a few years over there. We got over 20,000 concurrent users, and we've got actually over 150,000 people that watch the show every single week. So thank you guys so much for those numbers. The numbers are super increasing. That's an average. We actually have hit quite a bit higher than that lately. But so thank you guys so very much for joining us. And then let us know in the comments what kind of shows you'd like to see. What games would you like us to cover? What teams? And are there any special interviews you'd like us to do? We have great access to a lot of the players and coaches, especially the alumni players and coaches. So let us know what it is you're looking for and to see, because we're here for you as much as we're here for everybody, in this. For our entire team, this has been Logan Landers and the host, and myself, Jeremiah Long, the producer. And we'll see you a little bit later this week on 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. Bye, guys.